there is the conditions for joy present here in our community. And that's great. And there's also been the conditions for pain and suffering and grief and challenging times. And it's such an important thing to make room for these experiences. We often associate mindfulness practice with serenity and calm or insight. But I think one of the things that's often overlooked is practicing joy. And I would submit to you for your consideration that it isn't a luxury. It isn't the icing on the cake. It's actually a necessary ingredient in our practice to notice joy, to cultivate joy. It's one of the 7 enlightenment factors. It's one of the 4 Brahma Viharas, mudita, the practice of altruistic joy. And without joy, our practice can become dry and brittle. It just helps with kind of softening and opening our hearts, and makes for more resiliency in practice, more responsivity. And I just want to be clear when I'm talking about joy here. I don't mean a kind of giddy euphoria or constant happiness, like keeping a smile plastered on your face regardless of what you're feeling. I mean something deeper, something quieter, what's sometimes called the joy of being alive. Just because there is life, just because there is this moment. It's similar to what Kate Davies was talking to this past Wednesday. Intrinsic hope was the topic. And I think the experience of joy is akin to that, or it's closely related to that. Sure, yeah. Oh, there's that. So it's it's subtle, and it could be a smile, or just a moment of appreciation, or a pause to feel the breeze on your cheek, or just what it's like to just be here for the miracle of this moment, just given all of the possibilities, we actually are alive in this moment, that we can be present and know that life is happening. And as I was suggesting at the beginning, this doesn't have to be an invalidation of whatever else is going on. If your predominant experience this morning is grief, or sadness, or feeling enraged about the state of the world, you don't have to deny those feelings. There's total room, there's total space. And with this practice, there's an understanding of the impermanent nature of all mental and emotional states. Everything is in flux, it changes. Even states of deep depression ebb and flow. And there can be space where there can be some momentary enjoyment or pleasantness. Back, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago, I met with a student who was experiencing deep depression. And, so we were trying to work with that. And and we were doing some body scans. And I was just asking him, so is there any place in your body where you don't experience depression? And he said, after doing a complete body scan, he said he couldn't discern any depression in his left big toe, that there wasn't any depression there. And so even if we're struggling with difficult states, difficult circumstances, sometimes even just on the periphery, we can find a little freedom. And to not miss that freedom, that opportunity to enjoy that. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master, said, don't forget about the non-toothache aspect of things. That if you aren't experiencing a toothache, to notice that and to appreciate that, because it could easily be otherwise. I don't know if anybody here has recently experienced major dental work, but it can be incredibly painful and difficult. So just appreciating that. So here's part of the challenge that we face and the importance of this practice and the wisdom of the Buddha 2,600 years ago. Is, and this comes from modern neuroscience. Unfortunately, our brain's standard setting is to emphasize negative experiences. That's because negative experiences historically in the evolution of our species have posed the greatest threats to our survival. So to make a very long story short, our ancestors who survived long enough to pass on their genes were the ones who were hyper alert to danger. So we could picture like these small rodent-like creatures living in kind of the Jurassic Park prehistoric times, constantly on edge, dodging predators, freezing at the crack of a twig, bolting at a shadow. So during those conditions, under those circumstances, the quick survived, the slow were dinner, basically, is what happened. So that's what survived. And so that same circuitry in our brains tends to light up when we drive through traffic, argue with our partners, hear a strange noise at night, open up a letter from the IRS. And that those responses, that conditioning, doesn't mean that we're broken. There isn't any brokenness here. It's just that we're built that way. That's kind of our inherent conditioning. And yeah, we do notice positive experiences, but and this is according to Rick Hansen, who's a neuropsychologist and Buddhist teacher. He said, unless we're having million-dollar moments, our brain processes positive experiences like a paper and pencil sketch, while it records negative ones like a high-definition video with surround sound and terabytes of storage. And so at the end of the day, what stands out, the dozens of pleasant little moments or the one awkward or difficult exchange. That's the tendency. So even though most of our experiences are either neutral or positive, our brains tend to zero in on our failures, our losses, the threats. And of course, our news media and social media tend to amplify that because that's what gets our attention. So there's that. So what can we do about that, those conditions that we find ourselves in? Well, and this ties in directly with this practice. We can intentionally emphasize and internalize positive experiences. And once again, I'm not talking here about denial or suppression of the things that are really difficult and challenging. In Dharma practice, I mean, the Four Noble Truths, I mean, right from the get-go, it's about dukkha. It's about turning towards and exploring dukkha and the causes of dukkha. But what I'm suggesting to you this morning is that one of the causes of dukkha is how our brains process information. And we can do something about that. Pain is inevitable and as part of being human. But suffering is optional based on how we respond to the conditions that we find ourselves in. So just to briefly mention how we can kind of tip the balance back in a more kind of balanced direction. And that we're going to go into talking about specifically about mudita practice and how we can take delight in the happiness of others. But first, just think about this. We can help positive events that we come across in our lives that are just happening actually become positive experiences through mindfully paying attention to what's good in the world and in ourselves. So many things roll by without noticing. So we could spend a little bit of time each day taking in the good, just noticing that, just allowing ourselves to feel good, to receive pleasure, to be happy. Sometimes we have, and I notice this coming up in myself at times, a sense of guilt or self-consciousness about enjoying life. And yet the meal is prepared. It's ready for us. So when there's beautiful flowers in the springtime or the warmth of the sun, we can absolutely be present for that. We can make room for that. Opening to the emotional texture of positive experiences. So it's instead of it just being a sort of fleeting acknowledgement, to actually be here in the embodied experience of it, the warmth, the texture, the ease, the delight. And then we can create positive experiences. Taking on meaningful challenges, helping others, cultivating compassion, recalling moments of contentment and peace. Those are all resources that we can tap into. We can extend it in time and space. So instead of it just being a fleeting thing, it's like, oh, I can actually really stop and smell the roses, let it linger. Notice any tendency to move away from the experience of joyfulness. Yeah. And just let it sink in. And this matters. It's not just being nice, it's necessary. It reduces stress, helps the body self-regulate, builds resilience, helps with depression and anxiety, helps return us to the wholeness of our being, really, the fullness of our being. And in contemplative practices, like what we do here at PIMC and in the practice of the Dharma, it's these positive experiences help steady the mind, which is really essential for deep meditation. They support states of absorption, of jhana, blissful, focused awareness, It boosts dopamine, which helps the mind stay steady. It's less distractible. It builds confidence. There's conviction or faith. When we experience the sweetness of freedom, there's a motivation to come back to practice. So there's more energy there to practice. And when there's joyfulness, there's the cultivation of wholesome qualities. Then there's what the Buddha called the gladdening of the mind. It leads to that sense of wanting to be doing good things because it feels good. And so there are gates to joy, include integrity or sila. Remember a story that Jack Kornfield was telling about his teacher, Ajahn Chah. And the thing that Ajahn Chah, who was a Thai forest master, got the most excited about and joyful about was virtue. People living virtuous lives, living in a way that was non-harming, with honesty and compassion. It brings incredible joy. So it isn't about because we're supposed to. It's about because it feels good, ultimately, when we're paying attention to it. Generosity, which was our little mini talk here from Maggie, is incredible. It's an incredible source of joy. It's a wonderful thing, and it opens our hearts. Our fundraising campaign was an opportunity, giving in that way, just like volunteering is. Back, this is probably 15 or 20 years ago, I was working for a nonprofit in Portland that served at-risk youth. This was up in North Portland. And I had an opportunity at Christmas time to accompany a group of youth from the community to deliver food baskets to needy families. And I thought I was doing it as a service to them. But it turned out to be a service to me, really, in the sense that it was such a delight to see the joyfulness of these kids who had next to nothing, bringing food baskets to other families, shut-ins, elderly in their community. It was such a beautiful thing. And just their joy was radiant. The Buddha said, if you knew what I know about generosity, you'd not let a single meal pass without sharing it. And what did the Buddha know? Generosity is the antidote to clinging, and clinging is the cause of suffering. That's what the Buddha figured out. So the experience of joy comes from relinquishment. That's one of the ways we experience it. Gratitude, that's another way we experience it. Gratitude for the bounties of practice. And it doesn't depend on perfect conditions. It's, just the attitude. Sometimes even sorrows can be grounds for gratitude because they awaken us, they bring us to practice. And trust can also be a gateway to joy. To be, present with trust means I don't have to get it all right. We're part of something bigger, and there's a kind of reassuring of faith there. And joy comes also from renunciation. There's a joy in the simplicity in letting go. Just that sense of freedom from craving. that spiritual freedom is peace itself. It isn't personal, it's beyond me and you. Yeah, there's that sense, yeah, that just, it's beyond, yeah, coming and going. Thich Nhat Hanh said suffering and joy are not two separate things. If you know how to hold suffering with mindfulness and compassion, you suffer much less. And when you suffer less, then you have more room for joy. Um, and yeah, this is kind of a radical thing here in our culture. Uh, we're taught to chase happiness and avoid pain. But in the Dharma, we learn that the capacity to hold suffering with compassion creates the conditions for joy. So there's that. There's a story that comes out of the Zen tradition that I think captures some of what I'm talking about in a kind of sort of condensed way. It's the story of the monk, or it could have been a nun, who was walking in the forest and noticed that there's a tiger that's following them. And so they take off, the monastic takes off running and tries to get away from the tiger. And unfortunately, they find themselves at the edge of a cliff. What to do? Well, fortunately, there's a vine that goes down over the edge of the cliff, so they climb down the vine. They get down about halfway and they look down and they see another tiger down at the bottom. What to do? And then they look up and they see a little mouse that's gnawing away at the vine. What to do? And then they look over and they see this beautiful strawberry that's glistening with the dewdrop in the sun. And they mindfully reach over and grab the strawberry and eat it and enjoy every bite, fully present with the taste and the texture, present with that. Now, traditionally, that's where the story ends. Leaves us in suspense. Back the last time I told the story, I had a student who said, "So what happened? What was the outcome?" And I said, "Well, that's where it ends." And he said, "Well, so like it looks like he's going or she's going down, right?" And well, that could happen. So then, would there be like mudita for the tiger that's at the bottom of the cliff, or would there be compassion, or don't know? It's open to what your experience might be. There are always tigers. There's always things that are difficult and challenging and scary. And there's always strawberries. I just had a wonderful first strawberry of the season from my garden this week. It was wonderful. There's nothing like a fresh strawberry, just awesome. So I'd like to turn now to what the Buddha called mudita, which is altruistic joy. So we could experience that story with mudita, with even under those really dire circumstances. This person, this monastic, was able to experience the joyfulness that was available, that was within reach. So we can take delight in that. We don't know whether that was the last bite of anything that they experienced, but there's that. And This is part of the genius of the Buddha, is that taking a delight in the happiness of others, altruistic joy or sympathetic joy, exponentially increases the possibility of our experiencing joyfulness. If it isn't all wrapped up in me, if it's about we, if it's about us, if it's about the yeah the experience of waking up together and taking delight in that, and that's part of what we're doing here at PIMC. That's a big part of it, is really getting a chance to do that. When we experience joyfulness and we share it, we're actually giving our Sangha members an opportunity to taste that, to experience that as well. So, and we're just incredibly fortunate to have this opportunity to do this together. And so it's the capacity that's our birthright. Actually, it isn't something that we're creating from scratch. We're actually these Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, and equanimity are inherent capacities in our hearts and minds that with mindfulness and intention we uncover. We're uncovering these capacities, cultivating them. This one, this joyful one, is perhaps the least discussed and probably in some ways the most difficult. It might sound easy. Of course, I'm happy for you, but many of us struggle to access genuine joy for others. And the reason for this seems to be because our brains, because of our educational system, because of our culture, are conditioned to compete, to compare, to measure, to rank, to interpret others' success as a reflection on our own lack. I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced those kinds of states. I've certainly wrestled with those from time to time. I mean, even in Dharma practice back, I can remember on some of the early retreats I was going to, and there was group sharing. And I so wanted to get the positive attention of the teacher. And when some other student or yogi would share a really powerful insight, it's like, oh, gee, I wish I'd been the one to share that. They're getting the positive attention, not me. And there was suffering, there was dukkha there. So when a friend receives praise for something that maybe we've worked hard on, or when someone we care about falls in love and we're feeling lonely, when others appear to have ease while we're trudging through difficulty, these are opportunities actually to practice. It's courageous practice, really. It's transcending our selfing story practice, and it's liberating, really. Here's the message of mudita. Another person's happiness isn't your suffering. That's such a simple sentence, but it's really profound. That's based on an unconscious belief that joy is scarce and that someone else having some means there's less for me. And that isn't true. It just isn't true. It isn't limited. It's unlimited. The Brahma Viharas are limitless. So it isn't a pie with just so many slices. And I know this is deeply countercultural. It's radical, really, to say there isn't any scarcity here. There's just abundance, incredible abundance. Um, and it's abundance in a world that's trained in scarcity. Um, and we don't have to fake it. It isn't about plastering a smile on our face or pretending away envy. It's about seeing the reactive mind clearly, breathing with it, choosing not to feed it, to pause and observe and not identify with the mind that's caught up in that sense of separation. Um, and I've found even in really very challenging moments, both personally and with folks I've worked with, even in grief and incredible loss. Over this last 18 months or so, I've been privileged to sit with 5 different people who are going through the loss of loved ones, cancer, heart disease, yeah, and really opening and supporting the grief. And when we opened that, inevitably there's incredible gifts. There are moments of joy, even in the midst of that, miraculous things happening. If we stay open. And so it isn't about denying any of those things. I'd like to do a little bit, just a brief practice here, kind of coming back to this cultivation directly. I know we're getting towards the end of our time, and so please be attuned to your own energy. And if it feels like too much to do a cultivation practice here, you can just come back to present with the breath and maybe just hold in your mind something that feels joyful or pleasant, or yeah, just grounding and centering. But if you'd like to give this a try, this is the direct cultivation of mudita. And so to just take a few minutes here, maybe starting with just letting eyes close, centering in the breath, centering in the experience of the body, pausing. Notice what's here in this moment. And please be invited, as you're able to, as you're ready to, bring to mind someone who you care about, who would be easy to experience happiness for, and reflect on something that's beneficial that's happening with them or to them. So you could imagine them sitting across from you, or just having a felt sense. And it could be that something really simple, like they have a nice place to live, or they have enough food to eat, or perhaps something wonderful has happened. They've just gone through retirement and they have a lot of freedom, or they've just graduated, or they've fallen in love, or yeah, just whatever it might be, something simple. And we're not looking for absolute perfect happiness in their life because we probably aren't going to find that. It's all relative, right? They're still subject to the same conditions of a human birth. But there might be a wonderful thing or a delightful thing. It could be for friends in the Sangha who are here benefiting from the wonderful rebirth of this community, to just take delight in that. And with this practice, we can use the mind to our benefit, to use thinking with phrases or a phrase. So I'll share some, and these become part of the focus of our intention to bring our hearts of joy and delight to this wonderful person. May your happiness and good fortune not leave you. May your happiness and good fortune continue and increase. May your happiness not diminish. Those are just some examples. You're welcome to try one of those or another one that feels like a better fit. You could insert the person's name. And yeah, so the idea is just to repeat those, one of those or in combination. May your happiness and good fortune not leave you. May your happiness and good fortune continue and increase. May your happiness not diminish. And yeah, as you're able to stay with these intentions, notice how it feels. So it's coming back to this person, this intention, how it feels, wishing them well. And if the mind goes off into any other places, we could just note that and let that go, or just let that be and come back. It's planting seeds of joy, seeds of mudita. And just letting these intentions radiate throughout our being. And if it's challenging right now because of life circumstances to do this for another person, you can do the same practice for yourself, only it's focused more on, yeah, may I feel gratitude or appreciation for the gifts that are present for me. Notice, yeah, that could be a starting point. And then we can expand to include others. So just, yeah, being responsive to the conditions that we find here. And the iterations of this practice continue. We can move on to include other beings that we know in life that are having wonderful things happen or beneficial things. And we can include even those beings that we have trouble with, problems liking getting along with. We don't have time today to go through the whole extended practice with this, but to take this as a starting point or as a reminder that we can plant seeds of joyfulness that are about the the joy and delight of others having wonderful things or good things happen, the circumstances. So I'm going to transition us here to come back, and we'll do a little bit of community sharing before we close. So yeah, once again, chance to be present with the sound, maybe being here with noticing the breath, returning fully to the experience of the breath in this moment.